You've heard it said 1,000 times how narcissism lies on a spectrum and that we all have a touch of it. However, you're about to see for yourself that this concept is not only extremely misleading, but is one that is fundamentally flawed and has only added more mud to the already murky waters of narcissism. Why this matters so much and why it needs to be made clear and not merely something that is suggesting that NPD and somebody even with a high level or degree of narcissistic traits and tendencies lie within the same spectrum, because it's not a matter of being a difference in severity. It is a matter of being a difference in kind. NPD is not some normal personality trait cranked up a notch. As to conflate the two is like saying that accidentally getting black pepper in your eye while you're cooking is the same as getting sprayed in the face with pepper spray. Though, yes, both involve pepper and irritation. However, one is an annoying inconvenience where the other is completely debilitating. The same thing applies with saying that NPD and narcissistic traits or tendencies lie on the same spectrum in how these individuals think and work from an entirely different moral and emotional framework than most, being so alien and so profoundly different that in turn is the motivational driving forces behind their behaviors and their treatment towards others, and being void of any guilt or remorse in their actions that are so profound in nature that anyone with empathy, object constancy, or recognizes other individuals with their own feelings, opinions, and rights cannot fully grasp in its entirety how anyone would deliberately and repeatedly be so hateful, hurtful, malicious, and vile to another, which is not the case when you are dealing with someone, again, even with the highest degree of narcissistic tendencies. They are not going to have this same fundamental difference in their thinking. And though, yes, you can have a varying degree of narcissistic traits and tendencies, but you're not going to be a little bit NPD. You're full-blown once you've crossed over that line that, though may present differently as far as the different behaviors or manifestations in which they exhibit, but that is just part of the fucked upness, as well as you particularly may not be partaking witness to some of these other manifestations of it. But that does not mean anyone else that they are pulling the sheet over their head with, to which is everyone that they interact with aren't partaking witness to these behaviors, which I'll explain more in a second. Because not only do they think and behave completely alien to that of the average person, coming from this utilitarian mindset, everything they do all lead back to their delusional ideations of being some MVP of mankind, coupled with their black and white mentality way of thinking, having no shades of gray, no middle ground, and their deluded sense of self-importance and entitlement. So they not only see the world as they define it, their truth, their opinion, and their desires, wants, or feelings are the only ones of importance. This black and white mentality also brings about this gotta get you before you get me way of going about doing things, to which they will do whatever it takes as to not create a bump in the road to their delusional ideations of being some kind of super god. And by default, they're viewing others as merely some tool, object, or extension of themselves. Takes things like affective empathy, object constancy, whole object relations, inner subjective understanding, and puts them straight into the wood chipper. They are impossible for them to acquire, as they all are dependent of and rely on conceptualization of others being their own individual entities, which this, in and of itself, in all realness, is enough to seal the deal in what makes their thinking so completely ass backwards to that of most. But this isn't even the brunt of the fucked upness. The most dangerous part as to why this whole viewing it on a spectrum has been so misleading. Because again, due to this lack of object constancy in their black and white mentality way of thinking, they have no red light, they have no filter, and as such have zero qualms with seriously hurting you financially, psychologically, socially, physically, or all of the above, if dare you ever try to cross them, or they perceive you as a threat, trying to beat them to the top of their delusional hierarchical ladder out yonder on Never Never Land. And there is nothing that you or anyone else is going to do to convince them otherwise. As being egocentric, they not only see it as it being completely reasonable and they're deserving to take you out or take advantage of you, they see it as it being your fault that they had to go about and do whatever douchebag thing that they did to you. Whether you truly were trying to get ahead or if it was just some conjured up delusion that they perceived, doesn't matter, as it's all dependent on how they feel in that very moment is going to benefit them to come across in order for them to win, stay ahead, dominate, or control that particular person and or group. To which the behaviors that they exhibit or that you may partake witness to can go from such extremes, from covert passive aggression to overt physical acts of violence. They can come off appearing all sorts of charismatic, like some likable, humble, caring, kind soul, to a spineless douchebag hurling insults, degrading remarks, and all sorts of psychological warfare at your head. They can be the life of the party or the lost wounded victim. They may have a criminal record, or they may have successfully escaped facing consequences for their crime, blackmailed others to take the rap for them, or to be the ones to do the dirty work. They're going to exhibit different behaviors because these individuals' personality changes from moment to moment, person to person, so much so that even those who live with them are members of their family, next of kin, or co-workers. No one, not anyone, is ever going to see the full extent of the way that these individuals interact and the changes, even if just subtle, in their personalities from moment to moment and person to person, because these individuals are diabolical, pathologically lying, shape-shifting, demonic chameleons who will tell you whatever they need in order for them to get ahead. There is zero authenticity to their personality. But furthermore, what is constantly getting overlooked and undermined, that regardless if they are repeatedly killing others, embezzling money from corporations, psychologically torturing their victims, using coercion in means to satisfy their sexual desires, or coercing you in means to get you to behave in a way that they will benefit solely at your expense, or if they get off more in fulfilling their sadistic pleasures by watching you slowly suffer as they suck the life from your being, financially fucking you over, or by slaughtering and dismantling your body parts. It is all criminal, regardless of how you slice it, or whether or not they have got themselves an official rap sheet, or if they have successfully managed to weasel their way out of it. These individuals are, in every essence of the word, criminal. And by this being so trivialized, has done nothing, put their victims through enduring more pain, more gaslighting from society, claiming that they're being overlabeled. And I mean, seriously, the reality of it is, if anyone in this world doesn't want someone to be a narcissist or psychopath, it is those to which they abuse. And it is nothing that someone is just tossing around some label too loosely with, but it takes some big damn balls to even get to that point of admitting it to yourself that that is what you have got on your hands here, and then finding even more courage to say it out loud, and is not anything that someone who has legitimately dealt and been repeatedly enduring the blows from these evil fuckers is going to toss around loosely. And it is no joke how dangerous these individuals are. Focus should be on educating others on the harm that these people truly bring with them and how to prevent themselves by knowing what things to look out for, rather than focusing on these external factors, or create a paradox where now on one hand you just essentially have blurred the lines between what is normal and what is mental illness, that in turn justifies the very purpose of having a diagnosable disorder and the inclusion of NPD at all. Then on the other hand, if you do set a cutoff that the DSM in fact too does, with its requiring at least 5 of the 9 diagnostic criteria and significant impairment, etc., which is effectively saying that beyond this point is a disorder and before this point is not, which doesn't just defy the very nature of the phenomenon that they're using to describe narcissism and or NPD, but two, is completely counterintuitive and counterproductive. DSM's continuance of insisting that narcissism still be viewed on this spectrum, or blowing smoke up people's ass that being compassionate and empathetic towards these individuals for having a personality disorder is going to miraculously save the world and or their behaviors, because it's not. Because these people don't appreciate those things in the first place. They don't give two shits about your empathy, your compassion, or your pity, other than their being able to use it against you. And keeping your head buried in the sand is not going to help you or prevent you from being the next target in line if you aren't aware or don't believe that this kind of evil exists. If you find yourself in a position dealing with one, the best thing to do is to pack yo shit and make like Forrest Gump and run, and just keep running and don't ever look back, because ain't nothing good, warm, or fuzzy coming from that. So fight for you, save you, focus on you. Fuck the narcissist.